Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. I am Jeremy.
You are, and I am Andy.
And this week, things may look a little different. For one,
Yeah, you've been busy.
8 months of hair growth has been chopped off my head.
It has.
So now I actually look a little more like on all of the pictures on our videos.
Yeah.
The character of me has short hair, and I imagine people came
Right.
to this for the first time. They're like, that doesn't look anything like that guy. And maybe now I look like myself.
Yeah, looks great.
And then we have a little different setup here.
We do, thanks
Got
to
some
you.
New tables and chairs. I was just telling Andy this is my birthday present to myself because I wanted this as a setup. So
You treated yourself for your 25th birthday.
yes, exactly. My
Yes.
25th birthday.
25th.
That's all I am.
Yes.
And that's all anybody needs to think.
Exactly.
So, but today, the highlight of my weekend has been getting this new setup. Mm-hmm. We said it. We're a podcast for the people, and the popular movie coming out is Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah. I can't even not laugh when they say
And
that
we
title.
both said Venom has not been a franchise particularly for us.
No.
We just hope we're going to be pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
with this newest entry into the Venom world. I could genuinely say I did that. Like, there was no reservation about me going in, going like I was just like, I'm hoping for a pleasant surprise here. And I'm going to ruin it right out the bat and just say I wasn't.
No.
I wasn't pleasantly surprised.
Neither
with
was
Venom:
I.
The Last Dance.
Neither was I.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was not a good movie.
No. And unfortunately, what that means to me is that just means we capped this whole Venom character
Yeah.
having its own movie and franchise. So the first Venom comes out in 2018, and I remember having like some cautious optimism.
I remember being like, Tom Hardy, okay.
That's
Like,
exactly
Let's see
right,
where
yeah.
this goes.
Like, I like Tom Hardy. Venom could be an interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know, like, I'm not a huge Venom comic books person, but
Right.
I remember him from the old Spider-Man cartoons, and he was always like a super cool character. And
Well, and he's just visually appealing. Like, he looks cool.
yeah,
Like, he
Yeah.
does.
So, and it was like, oh, he's a villain character, and they're
Yeah.
going to do him as the
Like
he's
the
in
anti-hero
the
type situation.
lead of the movie. Like, this all could be interesting. And then
It just wasn't.
I didn't like what they did with the
I
movie.
didn't either. I didn't like the tone.
Right.
I think that would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. So Venom is 2018. Then we get the sequel, Venom: Let There Be Carnage, in 2021.
Yeah.
And then we get now Venom: The Last Dance in 2024. So 3 years apart each time.
Yeah.
I've said before on here that I think I have a pretty good memory with movies. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember. There's some movie I was saying I couldn't remember. Oh, Michael Clayton. That was the movie that for whatever reason I can't remember. I gotta be honest. I have the same issue with the Venom movies.
Yeah.
I've seen them and they're not that old. Mm-hmm. So it's just been within the last several years.
Yeah.
And I find myself watching Venom: Let There Be, or The Last Dance, and going, are they making references to the previous movies? Because I'm not sure.
No, same. Yeah.
Are these characters from the previous movies?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I had the same thing. Yeah. I really, I'm already doing the thing I said I wouldn't do, moving in my chair. I really feel like I went into this open-minded. Because like I said last week, it's not like we want to sit here and be like, stupid, don't go watch it. Like, really, it benefits us and everybody if it's a good, enjoyable movie that we liked. Mm-hmm. And, part of the thing is, like, we want to have, some integrity behind what we say. So I cannot sit here and say that this was a good, enjoyable movie.
Yeah. So it has incredibly already been successful. It was a $120 million budget, which again is
Ridiculous,
unreal.
yeah.
But it's already grossed 175
Worldwide. Yeah. But it was way down US compared to,
yeah.
maybe not way down, but definitely down.
Yeah, it was 51 US and Canada.
Yeah.
But that's still, like, if you get 175 worldwide your opening weekend,
Yeah, you're doing good.
you're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
It is 80% from the audience on the popcornometer.
Okay.
38% from critics, which makes a little more sense to me.
That makes a ton of sense to me.
I feel like critics were surprisingly high on the first two. I don't remember what their scores were, but
I
I
don't
just remember
remember.
critics like liking it more than I expected them to.
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't super high. Maybe it's just surprising me how high it was. But yeah, I think what it ultimately comes down to is I just don't understand what they're doing with the character of Venom throughout all three of these movies.
Yeah, there's not really there's not like an arc or a overriding story to this character. It's just like, Tom Hardy just kind of like the down on his luck guy, and he, gets attached to this Venom thing, and then there's just nothing deep to it. And not that you need something deep and meaningful from Venom, but I think like you need something other than just feeling like you just kind of wasted your time, which is how I felt with this movie.
Right. Weirdly, I feel like the Venom movies fleshed out characters in the world less and less as they went on. You think about something even as silly as the John Wick movies.
Right.
But in the John Wick movies, as you go on, they just keep fleshing out this underground assassin world more and more.
You learn a little bit more about it. And
with the Venom movies, they tried to have, the little bit I can remember, they tried to have some character development for Tom Hardy's character, Eddie Brock, in the first one. And by this one, literally nothing.
They don't even try.
Like, he's not even a character.
No, they're not
There's
even
nothing
trying.
to him.
No. Well, I think it's natural to compare it to like Marvel's Spider-Man trilogy.
Yes.
And it's like in that you see, within the superhero world, you see some growth from the characters. This Tom Holland Zendaya relationship develops. Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Ned, is that his? Yeah, like their friendship grows and evolves, and I'm not saying it has to be huge, but you can see some forward momentum. And like you said in this one, they didn't even pretend to try.
No. Again, I can't remember the first two well enough to remember, like, were they all this goofy? Because I feel like that's what they really did with this one, was really lean into
I think they lean into it more.
Comedy.
But I think the other ones, and that's the thing too with these, it's like, it's the tone. It's just like I said, like, they're just all over the place. It's like slapstick comedy. It's kind of gross violence in some points. Like Venom just eats people. Yeah. Like that's a thing. And so it's just like a weird mishmash of tone.
Yeah. So I guess we should explain or try to explain a little bit of what this movie's about. Because this movie, it's not heavy on plot.
It's a mess.
The movie introduces a new villain that I've never heard of. I don't know if he's something prevalent from the
I don't know
books.
Either. Totally, to me, just generic and forgettable.
Yes, absolutely. So we don't even really see the villain. He's in this symbiote-surrounded world, and he's the creator of Venom in his kind, and that's it's such bad exposition. It starts the movie. It looks like a video game like cutscene to explain what the adventure is. You're going to go on a video game, and I honestly was like, when this happened, my hopes just like it's like somebody just let the air out of a balloon.
I literally in my brain I was like, oh no. That was literally what I did. And like, oh man.
Like this is where we're starting. This
is where we're starting.
Yeah. So yes, it turns out this guy has been imprisoned by Venom and the other alive symbiotes, and he wants to get out. And there's this codex. I hate these freaking MacGuffins. They're
so lazy.
In any of these movies, the codex, the Matrix, the box.
What was there? What was like in the Rise of Skywalker? It was like the Wayfinder or something.
Yeah,
it's just like some generic device that's super important, but you've never heard about it until this movie.
Yes,
like they do that. Movies do that a lot, and it's so lazy.
So this codex, it's discovered Venom has it, and it's activated like a like a search beacon.
Yes,
when he becomes Venom with Tom Hardy, when he bonds,
which he's been doing now for a really long time,
yes.
And of course we're just now hearing about this.
These crazy creatures, these alien creatures, monster-looking things, are sent out to track him down, and of course they arrive to Earth, and really, like, that's it. They're the big bad of the movie. That was kind of a shocking thing to me. Is like you're thinking, okay, these like come, and then something more comes. Like, no, just these.
That's it.
Yeah. So. Yes, that's the story. And then them trying to survive. There's a whole thing going on with Area 51 and some scientists studying there that doesn't matter. There's a storyline with a hippie family trying to make it to Area 51. It's the aliens. That doesn't matter.
That was terrible.
Literally nothing really matters in this movie because it's all just trying to get to set pieces. And again, I keep saying and again. That's a thing I say too much.
Okay.
And again. I cannot believe that this is the culminating movie in a trilogy. I'm like, this is really the story you wanted to tell to send Venom out with a bang?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that feels grander about this. There's
No.
nothing that feels special about this. It feels kind of like you had a throwaway Venom spec script and you said, let's just dig this up and do this for a final one and get him out of here.
Contractual obligation movie is what I say it feels like, where they're like, oh, we signed on for 3, so we got to do 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing. And it's like, again, maybe I'm wrong because I don't have this great knowledge of the previous 2 movies. This isn't something that's been built to or teased. I mean, like, for as much as all these movies love to do their mid and end credit scenes, like, I don't even think we got anything that leads up to this.
No, and speaking of that, and you know what, I'm going to go ahead and put the spoiler warning for anybody who, because there's not a lot to spoil, but the thing I'm going to say next is sort of
Spoilery.
really sort of anti-spoilery. We hypothesized, will we finally get other Marvel characters in this movie interacting with Venom? It had kind of been teased, was it in the credits of a Spider-Man movie where Venom pops up?
It was Spider-Man No Way Home.
And the movie kind of picks up right where he
Right,
was
and
there.
they're in that bar. Yeah.
And it almost immediately undoes that. It's like, no, we're not actually going to do that.
Yeah.
We're bring him back to our world
Yep.
so that he can interact with those. And then, we never get Venom interacting with anybody else.
No.
And so that was really the big disappointment for me is like, well, maybe at least we'll finally see Venom interact with the other Marvel characters or, not all of them, but someone,
course, or
something.
some kind
Get
of
us
tease.
a Spider-Man moment or even one of the other villains, something.
Something.
Instead of Venom only interacting with generic
Venom type characters.
characters, yeah. And it just didn't happen.
No. Yeah.
It felt so like insulting almost how quickly they were like, hey, remember this thing we teased you?
No.
Let's immediately undo it.
Yes. The superhero movies have lost the ship has drifted off course. Because it used to be like this stuff was, and I understand this is not a Marvel property. This is the wretched Sony Marvel spinoff thing that they've got going on. But yeah, they would have never done that, it feels like, back in the day. Like, they wouldn't have teased it and then just immediately yanked the rug out from underneath you.
Yeah.
And in a time when superhero movies are struggling probably more than ever, it just doesn't seem like the time to be doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did look up I said couldn't remember if characters were from previous movies or not.
Yeah, the one dude was from the guy that, like, you thought he was dead from Carnage.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Stephen Graham plays a detective.
But it doesn't, like you said, it just doesn't matter.
He was actually, he was literally just there for exposition.
Yeah.
Like, he literally had nothing to do in this movie.
No.
'Cause not only was he just there for exposition, but he only got the exposition when he got covered in full, like, Venom-like symbiote
yes.
things. And so he's like, I'm going to stand there and look like this, and then CGI will take over and do the rest of my
say
job.
the things that need to be said.
But Chiwetel Ejiofor
Yeah. Good job. I'm glad you tried to do
tried
that
really
because I
hard.
wasn't going to.
shows up as this army guy. And the way that they bring him in the movie, I thought, well, he had to be in other movies because they just sort of like,
Yeah.
here he is. Like, this guy.
No.
And I looked up, I was like, no, this is the first Venom
This is
movie
his
he's
first
been
time.
in. He
Yeah.
just pops up like, hey, you guys should all know me. I guess they were just depending on the audience being like, hey, I know, it's that guy. It's
a dude from Doctor
He
Strange.
must be a big deal. And that's the other thing that's weird is, yes, he's already been in a Doctor Strange movie. And you might say, well, different superhero properties. But that's exactly what they just crossed in that teaser scene and then undid. And so it's
stupid.
It's a whole mess.
It's just, that's the thing. That would be the thing I would use just to describe this whole movie. Just a mess. Mm-hmm. It's just a mess.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we have no, like you said, we're not upping the stakes. We're not making it more grand. Okay, a horse gets the Venom thing on it. And we already showed that in the trailer.
Yeah.
So even by the time that happens, you're just like, yeah, I know. Like, I knew you were going to do this because you showed it in the trailer.
Yeah. There is the moment where they're at the casino and they run into this lady, Mrs. Chen, and she apparently is from the other movies. I had zero memory of it.
I kind of remember
and
that.
I'm like, what is this? There must be a reason I don't remember this because this is ridiculous and horrible, and I don't know why this lady's in this movie and what's going on with this scene.
That was a terrible scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can make an argument like contender for one of the worst scenes of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this is what I think. For as far as like what they thought they had going for them in this movie.
Okay.
We talked about being a little more slapstick. I think they think this is a really good it's not a cop movie, but buddy cop type movie. Mm-hmm. But they're sort of one person, but there's two.
Right.
I think that's what Tom Hardy likes about it. I get to play like the Eddie Brock character and do the Venom thing and do this back and forth and kind of be like, actors are goofy, weird people. As much as we look at like Tom Hardy and be like baddest dude on the planet, the reality is Tom Hardy's a goofy actor, dude.
Yeah.
And he likes to be silly and he likes to like do the weird physical comedy things he has to do, being Eddie Brock, being controlled by Venom, and then the voices.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of a similar voice that he does in a lot of movies. He does this sort of nasally, like kind of whiny. I'm Eddie Brock, and I'm a little neurotic, and I talk. And you know what it sounds like to me when he talks? It sounds like a serious actor who isn't an impressionist trying to do an impression of Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Like the Adam Sandler. That's what he sounds. He sounds like he's kind of doing nasally and like, I'm a really pathetic guy. And then Venom comes in, Eddie. It's just back and forth. That to me, I go like, I think they thought this is like witty banter, and these two are going to be really funny together. This back and forth, and I'm watching, going like, I'm not enjoying this at all.
So I wanted to bring this up. Is Tom Hardy bad in this movie? Does he just have nothing to work with?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, this is not what I want to see from Tom Hardy. Mm-mm. And I'm not saying that every movie he has to play just a BA, but like, he so clearly is. Mm-hmm. And, I hate to criticize, because I feel like there'd be a world where we'd be like, Tom Hardy, do something besides playing like this big tough guy. But this is a case where I'm like, Tom Hardy, go back to playing the big tough guy. Because you being like, just like you said, like, I don't want to see Tom Hardy like sweaty and neurotic and with an annoying nasally voice. Yeah. That's not enjoyable. That's not fun. It's not, that's not what I want to spend my time doing. And then, the Venom stuff, I don't know. By the time you've seen it for 3 movies, like there's nothing new to bring to the table. So yeah, it's like, I agree with you completely. I think they think this is like, oh my gosh, like we get to do this and the face comes on and then it goes off, or it kind of comes on. And then they have the whole like, we are Venom, and Venom keeps jumping the gun, and which they also gave that away in the trailer. So you're just like, this is not funny because I don't like this Eddie Brock character, because I don't want to see Tom Hardy being this way. And yeah, it just makes for a really unenjoyable experience.
Yeah. So the other thing that really annoyed me about this movie is, and it's been annoying me with all 3, the vague understanding of what Venom is and what he can do.
Yeah.
Or all those symbiotes is just such a lazy cheat code for the writers.
Yeah.
Where whatever we need these
whatever we
symbiotes
need it to do, it can do.
Yep. And especially when we get to the climax, and sorry to skip a whole bunch of movie and just jump to the climax, but the climactic thing where they're battling these aliens at Area 51, and where they're keeping all these other symbiotes, and they're conveniently all different colored so that we can tell them apart, because otherwise they'll look exactly alike.
Right.
And then they're like, we need the symbiotes to all unleash them all so that we can fight back against these things. That's what you need. And so they unleash them, and again, few things I remember from the first one, but that it's very hard for these symbiotes to find a match. And when they don't find the right match, it's like kills the host.
Yeah.
I do remember that being a thing. So that's why it was such a big deal that Venom and Eddie could combine, because it was such a rare thing for the match to work.
Right.
Throw that out the door, because immediately all these symbiotes are finding perfect matches, and all these scientists that are running around so that they can latch on and Venom out, basically, and fight these things. And I'm like, okay, this is
like, so just do whatever you want whenever you want, and nothing matters.
Yes, it's sort of the Thor Love and Thunder problem, where they're just like, hey, we want people to be able to do whatever and have fun. So let's
that's a great comparison.
Everybody gets to have a Venom suit and fight, and because it's more fun for more Venoms, right?
Yeah.
And it's
not fun at all. Yeah. And then going back, like, it's hard to talk about this without drawing comparisons to the MCU. You go back to like that prime MCU I always talk about, like Iron Man to Endgame. Nothing felt like a cheat, or nothing felt like, oh, well, now we can just do this. Everything felt built up to and earned. So by the time you get something like Captain America holding Thor's hammer, you're like, yeah, awesome. We've built up to that, and we've earned that, and we've taken our time. And it didn't feel like them just going, I don't know, just have Captain America grab Thor's hammer. You know what I mean? Like, they were playing by a set of rules. And then, like this, like you said, perfect example of just, I don't know, just do whatever. Doesn't matter. And that's insulting to the audience, even if it's a Venom movie.
Yeah. And, the dramatic conclusion is Venom sacrificing himself. You kind of know what's got to happen.
You see it coming.
They say, again, going back to all the exposition and with the device that he has or whatever that they need, they say as long as they're both are alive, the thing's active. But as soon as one's dead, and
what do you know?
Convenient. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
You're like, well, Venom's going to die. And
you
can't just kill Venom.
coming.
So you're like, Venom's going to make a sacrifice. You know all this. If you've seen any movies, you know all of this is what's going to happen. But going back to you can do whatever you want. So these monsters that are after him have been pretty much unstoppable. Yeah. And then when Venom finally decides, okay, I'm going to sacrifice myself, which one more aside, time management in this movie is all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it is like people go from A to B in the most unrealistic amounts of time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a moment where they figure out Eddie's like in Mexico and then cut to immediately they're there.
Yeah.
And he's like walked down the street is all he's accomplished. You're like, how in the world?
How did that happen?
And then you've got scenes like at the end where these monsters who attack very aggressively and fast are 50 yards away from Venom and Eddie, and they have time for a 3-minute
conversation
to send off, and you're like, okay, now
I know
time to stand still. But when he finally had that conversation, Venom's going to sacrifice himself. The monsters attack, and Venom just like spreads out and grabs them all and drags them all, and it's like, oh, you can.
So he can do that?
Yeah, like
why didn't you just do that? Like, yeah.
And I get like because it wasn't until he decided to sacrifice himself that he would hold them there and then take them over to the acid and drop it on them.
But still, yeah.
But it's just that sort of thing. Like Venom really didn't fight back at all this whole movie. They really made Venom seem like a kind of worthless, not tough, not fighting. And that's where I go back to like, what were they trying to do with this character?
Right.
Venom, who was such a awesome, powerful Spider-Man villain. Like he's the guy who can do what Spider-Man can almost, but he's almost more powerful than Spider-Man, just darker and they
wipe all that.
Just totally kind of neuter the character.
Completely. Just for the sake of what? Some laughs, I guess, or some, I don't know. It's a mess. And the whole trilogy is a mess.
Yeah.
It is.
It makes me glad that they're done with it. It makes me sad that I feel like now it's going to be harder to include Venom as a character. He's probably a character that just is better served being a supporting character.
Probably.
Not having his own movie.
Let alone 3.
Maybe like Hulk, It seemed like we couldn't get Hulk right, and then Hulk just started being just a supporting character. It's like Hulk's
and that
great.
worked.
Now people are like, we should have a whole Hulk movie. It's like, well, we tried that actually.
Yeah.
Although I say that, and we've talked about this before, it's not like people said, well, we've already had the Joker too many times. Maybe we should stop doing the Joker. So maybe Tom Holland's Spider-Man will get his own version of Venom, and maybe they'll do it right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a bummer that they took 3 swings at it, and I was like, 0 for 3 struck out.
Yeah. And it's so annoying to me, too, that they specifically market this. They're pretty open about how this is like the end of this trilogy, and the movie's called The Last Dance. And then they tack on a mid-credit scene and an end-credit scene.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, my gosh. Like, either be done with it or don't. But don't say you're done with it, but then still tack on some crap at the end.
And the mid-credit scene that just basically undoes
everything.
The plot of the whole movie, where the guy's like, now your champion's dead. Who can stop me? It's like, wait.
Wasn't that
dead. I thought he was the key to getting you out, and now that he's dead, you can't get... just whatever.
I know. By the time that mid-credit scene hit, I was like, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. I stayed for the mid-credit scene, and I was like... I always, on movies like this, I pull it up on my phone when the credits start. I'm like, oh yeah, do I need to stay for it? It said there's mid and post. The mid one happened, and I was like, I'm not staying for post. I'm just
it was stupid. Like it showed some dude crawl out of the rubble of Area 51, and you still see some...
It was the bartender dude, right?
Yes.
From Ted Lasso.
Yes, and you still see like some of the Venom stuff, and you're just like, okay, so this is the end, but let's make sure we go out of our way to show people but... it's probably like
just in case this makes too much money to actually.
Yeah, just in case this is a big hit, we'd like. And that's what I mean too when I say these superhero movies have just they've lost sight of what they were doing, and now everything is just a tease for something else and an end credit scene. And honestly, frankly, I'm just getting tired of it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to lump the MCU into this because I know it's not the MCU's fault, but the MCU is guilty of a lot of the things that I'm getting annoyed by in superhero movies. So
particularly recently. I mean, what's the last really good superhero movie we had?
I mean, Deadpool and
Guardians
Wolverine
3.
was,
Deadpool and Wolverine. I think
really
I forget to include that.
but that wasn't even, that was just more of like, not even like quality, just as more entertainment probably. Yeah, Guardians 3 probably, but it just, I'll forever say it just hasn't been the same since Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, and
You know?
and you'll continue to be right.
Yeah.
Until
I guess maybe one positive is I hope that this frees Tom Hardy from this. You know, like I hope Tom Hardy is Eddie Brock in the fact that he is now free of this Venom and can go back to being like, I hope he's in the next Christopher Nolan movie or something.
Yeah, I did see a thing the other day that said there's some talk somewhere of the Bane Batman character returning, and that Tom Hardy would be interested in returning to it. And I'm like, I don't know how or why, but you know what? I'd 100 times rather another Bane than another Venom.
I'd much rather watch another Bane than another Venom, yeah.
So I just have the IMDb pulled up for this movie, and I was kind of scrolling through the cast, and I did not know until just now that Null, the generic villain,
Is the dude from Amazing, or no, the hippie guy is the dude from Amazing Spider-Man.
well, yes, that
Right.
Rice Ivans. I
Yeah.
don't know how to say his name, but he's been in a bunch of stuff. I always think of him as the guy from Notting Hill. The flatmate.
Yeah.
But no, the villain, the generic video game looking villain, is done by none other than Andy Serkis.
Oh, yeah.
What a waste of Andy Serkis. Why do you bring Andy Serkis in to do
For this. Like, that dude, he's a really talented guy. He's brought some
Yes.
really cool creations to life.
I will say maybe the only reason that he was willing to do it is he was the director of the second one.
Yeah.
I did read that he was interested in possibly doing the third, but he was busy. So maybe he just thought this is my one way to kind of like have a connection to it, is I'll just show up and do the generic green screen motion capture for this villain.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that the screenplay, well, first off, Tom Hardy has a story by credit.
Okay, Tom Hardy.
Story credit.
Sure.
The other one, the lady who wrote the screenplay, Kelly Marcel, wrote and directed. Also wrote such hits as 50 Shades of Grey.
Just a masterpiece of screenwriting.
Yes. And then the other Venom movies, also Saving Mr. Banks. What?
50 Shades of Grey and Saving Mr. Banks. Two movies that have nothing in common.
That's right. And that's why they said this is the person who can write the dual sides
Yeah.
of Eddie Brock and
Venom.
Venom.
Oh, brother.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm simultaneously a little surprised with that Tom Hardy story credit, and not surprised.
Not at
'cause
all.
I bet there was a lot of them going like, hey, like we said, the whole movie's based on, I need you to banter with yourself.
Yeah, he probably just
Venom
improv'd a lot of that. I mean, I don't know that, but...
or said, hey, I'd like to do a scene where I do this
Mm-hmm.
with Venom and Eddie do this back and forth so
Yeah.
I can, yeah.
It's so weird to me that this is what Tom Hardy sunk his teeth into.
I know.
It's so weird.
But again, just to emphasize, actors are weird people.
They are
They're
weird.
not what they present on screen.
That's true.
I still go back.
You're right.
To all the time I think about when Avengers, it was either Infinity War or Endgame was coming out, and one of the times all the cast was doing all the circuits of TV shows, and one of the TV shows was asking him like, who's the most likely to this or that, and they'd write their answers. And one of the questions was, who's the most likely to be singing show tunes on set? And they were all like, oh, that's Chris Evans, and they're all like, Chris is always, and I'm like, of course. I look at him and go, Captain America.
Captain America,
he's this big,
buff,
strong guy,
stud.
he's always playing action heroes.
Show tunes.
But really, he's the guy who just wants to go around singing show tunes. It's like, that's who these
you're right.
actors are.
They're weird. You're
Yeah.
right. I don't know where else you wanted to go, but I think it's also worth just briefly talking about how badly someone needs to kill this Sony superhero universe.
So,
Because it is terrible.
It feels like it's almost dead, but it's still got
Craven the
Craven the
Hunter.
Hunter is part of this, right?
It
coming
is.
out this Christmas.
So you got such masterpieces now, such as the Venom movies. What's the Jared Leto vampire? Morbius, which was laughed out of theaters twice, and Madam Web.
Yes.
And everyone knows who listens to this show knows our thoughts on Madam Web. Our longest episode ever is just us mocking Madam Web.
Yeah, scene by scene. Just
Scene by
talking about
scene,
how
yeah.
bad it is.
So it's like somebody put a bullet in this Sony universe.
Yeah. Technically, I guess, are both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Sony Spider... I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even know anymore.
So I don't even know if any of those get to be included.
I don't know.
Kraven the Hunter...
I
the
can't
track record doesn't get me optimistic.
No,
but
I can't imagine a world where that's going to be a good movie.
I don't know.
I don't even know when it comes out.
It
like
comes
December?
out around, December. They pushed it back, and I remember the big thing was that the studio was convinced, like, because families are going to want to go see this over and over again, when they're together during Christmas time. And
Sure.
like, yeah.
Sure they are.
I don't know. Maybe it will surprise me. I do like talent involved, but I've liked talent involved with a lot of these projects.
Yeah,
it just hasn't mattered.
Exactly. I like Tom Hardy. I like Sydney Sweeney. I like a lot of these people, but they just cannot make good movies.
Seemingly not.
Yeah.
But bringing that up does remind me that I remember sitting in the theater and seeing several previews before this movie and going, man, I wish I was watching these movies I'm seeing previews for. I saw a preview for the F1 movie with Brad Pitt.
Yep.
Which, first off, doesn't come out till next summer. And I know, like, this is about the time of year that starts happening. But I'm like, man, why are you even showing me a preview and getting me excited for this movie? That's a long ways away. I've got to say that I'm shocked how much I'm kind of looking forward to Gladiator 2. Because
Me too.
the whole idea of Gladiator 2 I've been laughing at all along. But I'm watching the preview and I'm going, why am I feeling, like, excited about this?
Yeah.
And I think this is what I've come to. I didn't like Gladiator 1. I'm been very like on the record as saying I don't like Gladiator 1, but in large part because I just absolutely hate shaky cam action. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the main culprits, one of the first. And I keep thinking over the years, maybe Gladiator's better than I think because I like aspects of it. Like I like the setup, I like everything, but every time I try to watch it and it gets to that shaky cam action, I'm like, I hate this. No, I hate it. So my thought is if they do what I think they're going to do and film the action not that way, like we've kind of moved past this as a society. Hopefully he doesn't say we got to do shake cam action because the first one was.
I hope so.
And it's just good, clear shot action. Mm-hmm. Maybe it redeems the idea of Gladiator to me, and it becomes what I always wanted Gladiator 1 to be.
There you go.
Because it does look like it's hitting a lot of the same beats.
Awesome
but maybe
cast.
It just cleans it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible cast. And that's another thing that kind of makes me excited is like, okay, surely Denzel doesn't sign on to this movie if there's not like a good idea here, right?
Yeah.
Surely, I mean, the other guys you can kind of get because I like them, but they're still up and comers. They're not as established as Denzel, and they might just
Denzel
big action
does what Denzel wants to do.
Yeah, yeah. But for Denzel to go like, I'm going to play a supporting part, and in this odd sequel.
I'm excited for it.
So like I watched preview for that, and I was like, man, I wish that was the movie coming on right now, not Venom.
I really want Joseph Quinn to be good in that movie, and then have Quiet Place Day 1 and Gladiator 2 in the same year. That'd be a heck of a year for him.
That would be.
Yeah.
So I do want to hit some other movies quickly.
Yeah, you did a triple feature.
I did. I just had a busy movie watching weekend. So I watched 5 movies over the weekend.
Okay.
Friday, I watched a movie that I said I was excited for on Amazon Prime. Brothers.
Yeah.
Did you happen to watch this
I have not watched it yet.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to say I was disappointed by this movie. Because I'm sitting there watching, I'm going, we both said it. All I need to know is you got Peter Dinklage.
You got Josh Brolin.
They're going to play brothers. I'm like, I love both those guys. I like to watch them on screen. They're both guys I like to watch when they're just doing interviews. I'm like, they just both have a natural
they have a charisma or charm or something. Yeah.
Watching. And sort of the premise of the movie is they're twin brothers, and Peter Dinklage is playing the one who's a little more like wild. They're from a crime family, and Peter Dinklage is always the one who comes up with the plans and has the idea. And Josh Brolin's the brother who's good at like executing them. He's a safe cracker, but he's not really like that into it. But he also just sort of real dry personality. And boy, they must have coached him to say, "Hey, Josh Brolin, have none of your charm, absolutely none." And then it really couldn't decide what it wanted to be, whether it wanted to be like kind of a wild comedy or it wanted to be a little more grounded in reality. And so it was really uneven. And you had moments in the movie where like, that's straight out of a wild comedy, but it doesn't fit with the rest of the movie. And then you'd have moments that were like trying to be grounded, and you're like, but this is kind of boring because you don't really have it just wasn't.
Seems like we've had a few movies lately where we've really had issues with the tone of the movie.
It does feel like I made that note a lot recently, where I said the movie's just uneven.
Doesn't know what it wants to be, like you said. Yeah.
So that was the first movie, and there were moments. There was one running joke throughout the movie that's not even like a great joke, but like it did make me laugh a couple of times when they just kept referencing it. But I don't want to spoil it for you since you haven't watched it.
Yeah.
Went to the theater, like you said, on Saturday. Saw a triple feature. Started with the movie I was most excited for, which is Conclave.
Yeah.
And Conclave was good. It just wasn't great like I hoped.
Ah, darn it.
And part of it is just that, like, first off, it is wonderfully made, shot wonderfully, great cinematography, great score that gives you like this tension and uneasiness. It's weird how it's shot. It's almost shot like a horror movie. And I was like, you could splice images from Conclave in with either the First Omen or Immaculate or something.
Yeah, and it would work.
Fit right in.
Yeah.
And part of it's just the Catholic Church and a lot of their tradition, like the way they do things, very ceremonial, looks cultish at times. And you're like,
gives off the horror movie
This is
vibe.
why it feels like a horror movie.
Yeah.
But it's a drama about electing this next pope, and you've got these people who are sort of the favorites to get elected. I had forgotten, I think I did know this is how it works, is that they get all the cardinals together and they vote, but they have to have a certain number of votes, so they'll just vote again and again until they do it. Now, I mean, it might be like they vote and then wait a day and then vote again. And so while this is happening, so several votes are through while it's happening, Ray Fiennes plays the guy who's overseeing all this, and information kind of keeps coming to light about different people, and he's having to like kind of, they're sequestered though, so he can't just like straight up investigate.
Yeah.
He has to kind of like have conversations or have his guy that can talk to the outside world, like, hey, I need you to look into this.
Gotcha.
And it's all very interesting and fascinating. I think ultimately what kind of upends the movie is they just push how much drama's going on a little too far for a movie that is very grounded. At a certain point, you're just like, okay, you just one step too far. Maybe.
Yeah. Good. It's too bad. Ray Fiennes good.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
and that's one note I had is like, okay, maybe here's another possible best actor nominee, because we've been really short on, like we said, some Oscar potentials.
He probably falls in that category of he's probably never given a bad performance.
Yeah.
Probably.
And he's really smart about the movies he chooses, because it just feels like every role he chooses, you're like, yeah, that's a Ray Fiennes role.
Yeah,
like,
he does a really good job.
He was the right man for the job. That made sense.
Yeah.
I've never seen him in a movie and been like, why is Ray Fiennes doing
in this movie? Yeah.
I'm sure he's done some of those, because
sure
everybody has. But
he did a rom-com with Jennifer Lopez once.
That was probably the one then.
Man.
I feel like I know a lot about movies and I have zero idea which
Made in
Jennifer
Manhattan.
was it. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
I never saw that one.
Oh, come on.
So I didn't. I avoided it somehow. It's my lack of dating life. That's how.
It'll do it.
Second movie I saw was We Live in Time.
Yeah. Movie's getting a lot of buzz.
The romantic drama with Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. And
Two people that have pretty high approval ratings.
Why I saw it, because they have a high approval rating with me.
Yeah, they're
and
both
like,
great.
Let's see this movie. And ultimately, it's about what I would have expected. It's a pretty standard romantic drama
with two likable actors in it.
Two actors who make the most of it. It's non-linear, and I keep going back to this thing where so many of these movies are non-linear, and the only reason it needs to be non-linear is because if they told it in a linear fashion, it would be really unbalanced. Like, we've got too much at this point in their lives and not enough at this point, and it would feel weird.
So they bounce back and
so
forth.
we bounce back and forth to make it feel kind of all more balanced. But at the same time, I'm going, but it doesn't really help the storytelling at all to bounce back and forth, other than it just makes it seem like more's happening, I guess, or there's more for the audience to do.
It's a trick in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It really is. It's sort of a magician's sleight of hand trick.
Yep.
And when you're aware of it, you're just kind of like, okay, I get what you're doing. But there's also times where I'm sure it's meant to build the tension, but because you're going back and forth, there's times where there's no tension because you're like, well, I've already seen they're together later.
Yeah.
So this fight I know doesn't end the relationship.
Right.
Or she goes through a couple of bouts of cancer in the movie. You're like, so I know, again, we've been with her later in the movie. So
I know she
this dramatic
survived.
scene of like, oh, we're going to make it. It's like, yeah, because you're already showing me later in the movie.
Yeah.
And of course, if it's linear and it's halfway through the movie, you're probably also assuming she's going to survive.
Still, though,
but it's just, there's something about that back and forth that is supposed to build on the tension that sometimes I think robs it of the tension.
Yeah.
But again, ultimately, like really good performances. Again, I go maybe 2 more performances that could be nominated when we get to the awards.
We
times.
need something.
I wouldn't nominate the movie, but the performances I would.
Good.
The last note I'll have is this on that movie. Florence Pugh plays a chef in the movie. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what, Hollywood? I think we've met quota on chefs in movies and shows.
Yeah.
I think we've had enough. Let's just like retire that as a
Let's
profession.
find a new profession
for like a good decade.
Yeah. We've done that a lot.
Yeah, and it's been done really well. Right now, it's being done the best it's ever been done in the show The Bear.
Yeah.
And like as soon as she popped up and it was like she's a chef and in this fancy restaurant, I was like, oh great, I'm sure they're gonna do this better than ever. Nope, it's just pretty standard stuff.
Same stuff. Yeah. I mean, they've made the Jon Favreau movie.
Yep, chef.
Yeah. Well, the Menu. Yeah.
Yeah,
Chefs are
been
everywhere.
Several.
Yeah.
There's just been a lot, and when I saw that,
there's a lot of other professions out there.
I don't want to watch any more of a chef.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yep.
Then I watched Venom: The Last Dance. We've discussed. It was,
Yeah. It just wasn't good.
And then the final movie I watched was a new movie on Netflix, directed by Anna Kendrick, starring Anna Kendrick, called Woman of the Hour.
Watched it.
I'm so glad you did because I'm very curious to know your thoughts. And since I've been talking so long, I'm going to let you just start on this one.
Check this movie out.
Okay.
It's really good, I think.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I don't want to say too much because this is a movie that, like, you need to watch this movie. You need to let this story kind of unfold. I was super into it.
I was really into it. It's a weird movie.
It's weird.
And it's weird. Here's the one thing I'll say about it, and I don't want to sound negative because I enjoyed this movie. It's based on a true story, loosely.
Right. That's
Very
what you always
loosely.
have to go into these movies, like based on a true story.
It's based on a true story in the fact that like when you get to the end, it goes like here's what happened with the characters after this much of the story because they are based on real people. So this is what happened. The premise is so crazy that you're like. Okay, so I can just tell you. I guess it's not a spoiler to say the premise is that there's a guy who is a serial killer who ends up on a dating show, and Andrew Kendrick is the girl on the dating show.
Yeah.
And so it's this crazy, absurd premise of like this girl could end up matching with a serial killer on a dating show, and this is apparently something that actually happened.
Yeah.
But so much of the movie is outside of it. It's a nonlinear movie.
It is.
It is a nonlinear movie that needed to be.
Agreed.
This
Completely.
one served the story.
It served the story. It wasn't just a gimmick.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it'd be a really uneven movie if you're like, here's falling serial killer, and then a long stretch and he's on the dating show, and then after it. So they had to like intersperse, and it helped balance it because the dating show stuff's kind of humorous.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we expect with Anna Kendrick. Like,
definitely.
It's kind of fun, and it's juxtaposing like, hey, she's a fun, normal human being. But then because we've seen these flashbacks and forwards of the serial killer, you're going, hey, like, you're being light and fun, but there's a really dark thing looming
you're
over
in
here.
danger.
Yeah. And the guy who played the serial killer, I was watching going, he's doing a really good job. I don't recognize him. And then I looked it up, and he's the guy from It Follows. He's the long-haired friend in that one. And I was like, oh, it's the guy I just saw in It Follows. Like, what an interesting career he's at, because I've now only seen him in the two things. 10 years apart.
Yeah.
And but good job in both.
I was going to say, I thought he was really good in this movie. Yeah. No, I was super into this. Like, I'm not saying it's like my favorite movie of the year or anything, but yeah, like, I think the thing is sometimes we see this where movies come up with some crazy premise, but then that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Like, these two movies have nothing in common, but like Cocaine Bear. Like, oh, look at this crazy premise. Like this bear, and then it's a terrible movie. So I think I had an appreciation for this movie that they were able to come up with. I mean, even if it is based off true events, it's a crazy premise, but then they carried it out in a well done way, and it was a good movie with good performances.
What I liked about this movie, and I'm going to say this, if you've been watching up to this point, we didn't have anything really to spoil with Venom. I'm going to spoil some things in this movie. Turn it off, go watch the movie, and then come back. And hear our thoughts. But because you're still right, I think what they did so well is they were very smart in being conservative with what they did with the Anna Kendrick game show plotline.
Yes.
Because nothing really plays out with that one.
Right.
That's the one plotline where he gets to, like, he does win the dating show date with her, then they go out to eat, and she starts to pick up on his creepiness, and then like it looks like he's gonna be able to like attack her in the parking lot, and then some people show up and she's able to get away. So nothing really happens. So they're like, we have this premise where a serial killer was on a game show, but nothing really happened. But by dispersing it again with other crimes throughout, you get to see the heinousness of what he does. You get to have the tension of that moment and the absurdity. But a bad filmmaker, I think, would have said, oh, there's a serial killer on the dating show. We're only going to have that part, and we've got to show him being a serial killer in just that setting to make it worth it. And then they would have pushed the realism and the ridiculousness of that too much.
He asks like to use the restroom or something, and he goes and murders someone, and you're like, really, no one notices that.
So it was really restrained to say we're going to make this part that's sort of the main gimmick of the movie is that, hey, a serial killer was on a dating show, and not make too much of that.
Yeah.
But then kind of show the other parts.
Yeah.
Interspliced throughout.
So I have to ask the question: is Anna Kendrick underrated? Was she properly rated? Like,
so I was really impressed for a directorial debut.
Yeah,
like, she's got a command of what's going on in this movie.
Absolutely. Did she write this movie?
No, somebody else wrote it.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Or at least somebody else is the first credit on the writing when you look at it on IMDb. So my assumption is somebody else wrote it, and she read the script and goes, I dig the story, and I think I could tell it. I think I could.
Yeah,
I could shape
it didn't feel just like some movie star wants to try and direct, and it's like Elizabeth Banks, and not to pick on her, like she directed like Cocaine Bear and like the really bad Charlie's Angels reboot, and then you're like, I don't know, there's really nothing special about anything she's doing. You watch this and you go, like you said, Anna Kendrick, like what a command over this material she has. But I was just thinking, like, and then watching her on screen. You have to nail the game show parts of that. You have to. And she does. And she it's just good stuff. And I was like, man, like, I don't know that she's been in a ton of movies that I love, but I got thinking, like, she's never bad.
Right.
And, like, something I've, like Pitch Perfect, which is not really my kind of movie, but, like the women in my house watch that movie a lot, and it's like she's really funny in that movie.
Yeah, I think she's really good in Up in the Air.
Yeah, I would say her and George Clooney are great together.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, maybe she's properly rated, but maybe a good way to say it too is like watching this kind of maybe opened my eyes a little bit. It's like, you know what, maybe I'm underrating Anna Kendrick a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching going like, I've always kind of liked her, but now like.
I want to see what she does next.
I really I was kind of like you. Not that is she underrated or anything, but just like maybe I should have more stock in Anna Kendrick.
And by all means, Anna Kendrick, direct another movie.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this, I'll watch it.
Yeah. And if you wanted to go on a date sometime,
call Jeremy.
Okay. Yeah.
He'll go. He'll talk to you.
If you tried to hold my hand, I'd probably let you.
You will. Well, you guys could talk movies. Maybe you should come on this podcast.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the other thing. When somebody like her directs a movie like this, it makes me think like she must just be a movie fan because I mean, this is kind of a big assumption, but like when you watch somebody who has a command like this, their first time out, you're like, this is somebody who like knows movies. They know what works.
Yeah.
Right? I have a feeling like we would sit down and talk movies and she would have a lot of thoughts on movies because that's you have to be that way in order to direct like this first time out. At least I assume.
I would think so too. Big thumbs up from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that between that and Conclave, one of those two was the best thing I watched this weekend. But like, I was really glad to end my weekend on that because there was too many disappointments.
So I watched another Netflix movie.
Ooh.
It just came on in the last day or two. It's called Don't Move.
Okay, I wondered if you would watch this one.
I did watch it. But so there's like this emergence, and mostly on Netflix, I think, this genre of like woman with some kind of trauma in her life getting attacked and trapped by some crazy man. There's like 4 movies on Netflix right now. There's one called Alone. Yeah. There's another one, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a lady, she's stuck in like the hills of Tennessee, and it's all the same thing. So the twist on this one is, again, spoilers, is this dude drugs her, I guess. Like he hits her up with the syringe, and she literally can't move. So it's like they're taking this idea. It's like, but what if not only is this guy trying to chase and murder this woman, she can't move. So the plot and this genre is not original because, like I said, there's a bunch of movies like it. But these movies sucker me in every time. They just do. Because it's usually like there is something about watching like these females and they're getting walked all over by these crazy lunatic men, and then they come back, and you know, it's like it's not too big of a spoiler. Like the woman wins in the end, you know, and it's like, but it's kind of satisfying when this crazy guy who's, you know, bullying and torturing and tormenting these women gets what's coming to him. I enjoyed this one. I really did. This is a genre I like. I don't really like all these movies just getting dumped on Netflix, but if you're going to dump movies on Netflix, dump these kind of movies on there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be curious to watch it now.
Like
I almost
so sorry. I
started
just said way too much for you who hasn't seen it.
No,
but
I mean, like you really didn't say too much.
Yeah.
And I'm really fascinated to see how do you play out a whole movie where the main girl can't move. I mean, obviously, I know she'll be able to move at times.
She
but like,
can move
when
at
she's
times.
Drugged up, but
she's drugged up, and it gradually. He's like, you know, within, you know, he has this perfect mixture. It's like in 10 minutes, you're not going to be able to, you know. They find creative ways to do it. Of course, it stretches credibility, of course, but never to the point where you're like, shut this off. This is stupid. And, you know, all you need is from these movies is, you know, the guy needs to be appropriately creepy and disgusting so that you want to see him get what's coming to him. And the girl just has to be likable enough that you want to spend time, you want to spend this hour and a half with her and see her overcome these odds. And these movies always work for me. So I like Don't Move.
Good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Sounds like it was better.
Way better than Venom. I can tell you that. I'd watch it 10 more times before I'd watch. I never want to see any of these 3 Venom movies again.
I don't think I ever will.
No, I don't intend to.
I mean, it tells you something that like Joker Folie à Deux comes out and I rewatch Joker to see it. Like this is what I do as a film watcher. I prepare, and this Venom movie came out. I had zero interest in revisiting the first two. I mean, we even talked about like how I might need a YouTube, like what happened in the first 2 refresher video. And I was like, no, I don't even want that. No. I'm just going to go in and I'll know what I know.
I did the laziest thing possible. I just went to Wikipedia and reread Venom 1 and Venom 2. I'll tell you how forgettable these movies are. I literally forgot that Michelle Williams was in Venom 1.
I think the movies forgot that she was in Venom 1.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd never know. But I was like, oh, yeah, that's a thing. Like, thumbs down on this franchise. Superhero movies. Taking a hit lately.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't like Joker. We didn't like this. Last year, I named The Flash as my worst movie of the year. I stand by that. Madam Web is just the butt of all kinds of jokes. Joker Folie à Deux is turning into just a legendary bomb. So it's a rough patch.
Yeah. And I don't
Thank
know.
goodness for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
I mean, it made a ton of money and people liked it. And next year, there's 3 big Marvel movies coming out. If those don't land, the state of we might have to do a podcast on the state of superhero movies.
I'm not overly optimistic about a couple of them.
We've got Captain America: Brave New World.
Not optimistic about that one.
We've got Thunderbolts.
Not optimistic about that.
And we've got Fantastic Four, or is that the following summer?
I don't even know.
I think we do. I think it's Fantastic Four.
We do it, like you had mentioned. There's the announcement of a new Spider-Man, which I don't know when that's coming out. But
July 2026.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, as much as, I mean, it pains me to say this, but my interest in superhero movies is just, it's dropping.
Yeah.
It really is.
Here's one last question for you, right along those lines. What's the last really good Tom Hardy movie?
Well, he's been so wrapped up in these Venom movies.
Yeah.
Dunkirk, in which he doesn't say a word and has his face covered by a mask. That would be the thing, I guess, too. You'd have to ask, like, has Tom Hardy, you know, like, remember they tried to do that, like, rom-com with him and Chris Pine, and
yeah,
it's like Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
That was not a good movie. I really think, like, you know, far be it from me to tell Tom Hardy what to do, but it's like, maybe he is just better off in these smaller, like, he's awesome in Inception. Mm-hmm. He's awesome in Dunkirk. I think he's really good in The Dark Knight Rises. You know, like, maybe he's just not meant to be a leading man. I don't know. What's the, like, Prohibition era movie where he's, like, Lawless. Like, he's really good in that, and he's got a lot of screen time, but he's not front and center. Like, maybe that is where he is best served. I don't know.
Yeah. I hate to say disappointed with Tom Hardy's career, but he really exploded on the scene with the movie Warrior.
Yeah.
Where everybody's like, who is this guy?
Who is this guy? And then people loved him in Inception.
And you know, he's in Mad Max Fury Road. He was awesome in that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
But Yeah, I was looking up his IMDb, and he's like you said, he's been busy with the Venom movies. I was okay with the Bike Riders, but I'm not gonna say that was the last great. It was fine.
I thought it was.
I know you didn't care for it at all. He did the Capone movie, which I never even watched. I
Never seen
it. Was
it.
just bad.
His IMDb is weird too, because you'll see you're like Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Mad Max, and then you're like, I've never even heard of this movie. Yeah. It'll be some random movie.
He was in Peaky Blinders for a little bit, which I've never watched the show. I've heard it's a good show.
I have too, but I haven't.
But yeah, as far as movies, like Dunkirk in 2017 is the last one that I would go like, oh, that's a great movie. And like you said, he's not in it a ton.
Yeah.
And he was in The Revenant in 2015.
I do like The
people
Revenant.
Have different opinions on that one. I just haven't watched it since it came out.
Yeah.
I remember him being good in it.
He's good.
It's just a long
Another movie where he's like, whatever you do, I'll be in this movie, but I will not speak in a normal voice.
No, you're barely gonna understand me as I talk about my pelts.
Yep. And I'm gonna say the word pelts 375 times.
Yeah.
But I do like the movie.
Maybe the movie that is a surprise movie that I like the most with him in it. It's not the best movie he's in, but if you ever heard of the movie Lock, which is him driving in a car, and it's literally just him having phone conversations through his car, and that's one I was like, I'm going to watch this because I like movies, again, very limited setting. Like, how can you tell a whole story where a guy's just in his car having phone calls?
And he's good in it.
I was like, this is where I go, like, this guy is a star. He can do anything. Yeah. He can be in a car for a whole movie just having conversations. And then I'm like, where is that guy? He's been doing stupid Venom movies.
And yeah, the dude obviously has, basically in Inception, it's like, hey, be super charming, have like a dry humor, and make everyone fall in love with you. And he does. It's like he's got the ability, but like you said, I guess you're right. Like, movie stars are weird. Sometimes they just want to be weird and do weird stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I know, it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. Especially, and I know we're really driving this point overly home, but we also got to remember movie stars often don't even watch their own work. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to like what they want to do, they want to do stuff that they think is fun on set. So playing around in a Venom movie, maybe it's just
probably
fun
is
for him.
Fun. It probably is fun.
Just be like, I can just experiment and do whatever because Venom's a weird character. So he obviously has fun doing it, or I assume he does. Maybe again, contractual obligation. Maybe he signed on for 3 and had to do 3, but
could be.
He seems to enjoy it, and I bet he does just enjoy showing up to set and going, here, what goofy, fun stuff am I going to get to do today? And then it comes out, and whatever. The reception is what it is.
Yeah, and he just moves on.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, what I would want him to do, sign on to be in Nolan's new movie. Tom Holland's in it, and Matt Damon's in it, and it's supposedly going to be an action movie. That's what I heard.
Is Tom Holland going to be good?
Is Tom Holland going to be good in the movie?
I'm just wondering, like, where are you staying on him as a talent?
It's so hard because he's just so wrapped up in Spider-Man, which he is good at.
He's a good Spider-Man. What worries me is
can that transition?
When I say, well, what's another movie Tom Holland's been really good in? I go, The Impossible when he was like 13.
Yeah, Uncharted with Mark Wahlberg, which is just really, really generic.
I honestly,
but you know what though?
I've hardly watched any of the other movies he's been in.
I haven't seen him a ton either, but that's where you go back to like, I'm going to trust Nolan.
Yeah. That's true. Most people, like, there's not been a lot of bad performances in
Nolan movies. So I'm going to trust Nolan. I even heard a rumor where it's going to be about helicopter police. Did you see that?
Did you? I heard a rumor that's going to be about vampires.
I saw that too. There's a lot floating around.
Who knows?
Which is probably exactly what Nolan wants.
Yeah.
So we'll find out in July of 2026.
Helicopter police hunting vampires.
I'd watch it. I'd go see it.
Yeah. For sure. As long as it's not a convoluted movie about time.
Yeah, right. Because Nolan, I'm sure it'll be non-linear and
something's got to be different about the storytelling.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, that'll wrap up our all over the place.
We were all over the place,
movies, but a lot of movies have come out. We wanted to talk about these different movies.
Yeah, I can't believe I ended up talking about 2 Netflix movies when I'm so against movies. But I would have watched both of those movies in the theater.
Yeah.
I would have watched both of them in the theater.
There's one thing I really appreciate about Netflix movies, though, and that's that you never see previews for them.
Yeah.
Because as I was watching the previews, even the movies I was talking about, being excited about Gladiator 2, being excited about F1, both previews I go, I wish the previews showed 1/10 of what they just showed me.
Absolutely.
Because they could have just told me the name and the people in it, and I would have said, I'll be there.
Do you see what the budget for F1 is?
It's ridiculous.
$300 million.
I do think a large part of that is they've been filming forever.
Oh, I know.
Since COVID
but it's
and
like,
stuff,
does that movie even have a chance of making that money back?
it seems challenging,
Seems challenging.
but I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Speaking of movies, tomorrow I get to go watch The Exorcist. I was going to do it on Halloween, but we had to change our plans. So I get to go do that. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
In the theater.
On the big screen.
Yeah, my
with
streak of
Molly.
awesome movies awesome old movies on the big screen continues.
That'll be cool. I can't wait to hear your thoughts.
And it's the director's cut. They're airing in the theater. They're showing the director's cut of The Exorcist.
Do you know what that like? Have you?
I think at one point in time I did, but it's gone from my brain.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna find out tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I was a little disappointed. I put out a poll with my triple feature thing on Instagram and said, what's anybody looking to? I was hoping that the answer wouldn't be Venom: The Last Dance. I figured I'd get the most responses. My disappointment is I hardly got any responses, and about half of them were none of these movies.
Yeah.
And here's actually the biggest response I get when I say I went and saw Conclave. Is people going, "What's
that?"
It's like people I know.
I know. It's so hard when you love something as much as we love movies, and you don't always get that reciprocated.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's just a sign like, Conclave's not going to make a lot of money because.
But I did see where they made like almost $7 million, and they were like, you know what? Like, it's not great. It's not going to make any huge impact, but it wasn't like. I mean, some people went to see this movie.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes me happy. But yeah, people see movies.
Go see movies.
See movies, and then let us know what movies you've seen.
Yeah.
And tell us what you think about them.
Go to the movies, man. Or, as much as I hate to say it, watch these movies we recommended on Netflix.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Haven't even thought about next week, have you?
I mean, I've looked at the slate, and there was nothing that jumped off.
Well, we always figure
we'll
something
figure
out.
something out.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just trash Venom again.
Maybe.
No, I don't want to talk about Venom anymore in my life.
Absolutely not.
I don't want to devote any more of my time to these Venom movies or any more of my life.
It's immediately going to be just like the first two. I'll immediately forget what even happens.
Yeah, I mean, you can honestly probably right now show me a scene and be like, is this from Venom 1, 2, or 3? I don't know.
Yeah, which at the end, there's a bit of montage where it does show you parts from all
Yeah.
three. And I was like, which, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think this is from all three movies. I don't know.
Who knows? I don't know. Yeah. It's really disappointing.
Yep. All right, we will see you guys
See you next week.